Welcome to Voices of Adoption, where we share unique perspectives, actionable advice, and meaningful stories of birth parents, adoptees, adoptive families, and other members of the adoption community. I'm Donna Pope, Executive Director of Heart to Heart Adoptions.
And I'm Nathan Gwilliam, founder and former CEO of Adoption.com.
Together, we've been part of thousands of adoption journeys over the past 25 years, and we're so glad you're here.
Let's begin today's conversation.
Welcome to Voices of Adoption. We're so glad to have Tarcia Smith here, and we love the fact that she's here because she's also a podcaster, and so I've said she can do her podcast as a part of this. She is the host of Adoption Journey podcast and the co-founder of Black Adoptees Meetup, Black Adoptees Meetup, which is, I'm going to read it, a community-centered initiative dedicated to creating connection, healing, and visibility for Black adoptees.
Yes.
I'm curious why you started that.
So a friend of mine, Dr. Garland, and myself, we were just sitting around having a conversation and wondering where all the Black adoptees are. And what we meant by that is when you look at adoption and you look in different spaces, we are typically underrepresented.
And yet you really are more than white adoptees.
Yeah. And so we decided to the first year in 2024, just last year, we said, let's create a weekend and then just put it out there. And oh my gosh, we had no idea what we had started.
So what do you mean create a weekend? What does that mean?
So what we did was we decided to go to Atlanta. Neither one of us are from Atlanta, but it's a good middle spot. And we put together an itinerary. So we met at this restaurant on Friday night. And on Saturday, we got up and we all went to the Atlanta Zoo. And on Saturday evening, we all got together and we all dressed in black and went to Bahama Breeze for dinner.
Oh, fun.
And before the weekend was over, people were like, where are we going next year? We were like, wait a minute.
How fun.
Oh. And what the feedback that we got was it was something that I never knew I needed, to be in a space, not only being adopted, but being Black. And to just be in that space, because normally when you go into these spaces, you're probably one or two, three or four in a room full of people. And some of that may be because, and I can only speak for the Black community, this adoption thing is real taboo, even still in 2025. And so it's just created a space where people can just be. It was not a conference on purpose, because those conferences can be very heavy. We created a space where you can just be. So we went to Chicago this year in 2025. We did make it happen again. And next year in 2026, October 2nd through the 4th, we're going to Philly.
So how many people showed up?
So the first one, we had 25 people. And we just, like I said, we just put it out there. In Chicago, we had 30 people, to include one gentleman came all the way specifically for Black Adoptees Meetup from the UK.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Right. All the way across the pond.
Obviously what he was looking for was not there. You were providing it.
Yes. So, and we have just created a space that's needed, and we didn't know how needed it was. Just yesterday in Atlanta, they did a little mini meetup for people that live right there in Atlanta. So it's just, yeah.
No, that's crazy. Now, you've had a good adoption experience. You were raised by a loving family, felt good about it. Tell us a little bit about your adoption story.
Yeah, so I had a closed adoption. I was born in the 70s in Chicago. I was adopted as an infant, so my time in foster care was very short-lived. And I grew up knowing I was adopted. So it was never a secret. I was actually probably a little too excited about being adopted, because I'm in the era of like Annie and yeah, so seeing all that kind of stuff. So I was like, hello, my name is Tarcia and I am adopted. And my mom was like, girl,
Girl,
you don't
you
have
need
to,
to tell everybody.
you
They
don't have to
don't
tell
care.
everybody. And so, but of course, as I got older, that died down, but it was my norm and my reality. And they adopted 2 girls. My sister's also adopted. I'm 9 years older. And like I said, I just had a great life, but it never took away the fact, me being curious about where I came from. That's natural. And what I wanted, they spoon fed me information as I grew up, meaning they told me, I always knew I was born in Chicago, but I wasn't raised in Chicago. They left when I was a year. And they told me that my mother was 15 when she had me. Eventually, they told me like I was born at Cook County Hospital. Just little nuggets along the way. And when I was 19 or 20, right in there was the first time I set out to try and find my birth family.
19 or 20. So I'm curious, what made you think, I'm going to go see if I can find him?
Because I thought I was grown and I thought I knew everything. Because you know everything at 19.
Of course. Of course. And so how did you go about doing that?
My mom had given me the adoption agency. So this is in the 90s. So this is pre-cell phones. We weren't on the computers like that. Just to give context, we're still with the yellow pages and the regular house phone. And so I had gone to the adoption agency to try and find them. And what they told me, I gave them, of course, my information. And long story short, initially, they said they had reached out, and whomever they spoke to said they didn't want any contact. They said they had found them in the yellow pages, but because my adoption was closed, they couldn't tell me anything. So I was like, oh, okay. And it did sting, but I'm real young and I got a whole lot of other stuff going on and a lot more living to do. So it would be another 16 years before I tried again.
So, not that I'm saying they lied, but do you think that was entirely true?
I don't know. I don't know. I've heard and I only have this opinion because I have talked to so many people. It might have not been true. Who knows? I have no idea.
But when you did 16 years later decide to pursue it again, what happened then?
I was able, because the laws in the state of Illinois had changed, and I was able to get a copy of my original birth certificate. And when I did that, that would be the first time that I'd ever seen my birth mother's name. And her first and last name were very rare. So now we're in the age of Facebook.
Yeah, and you can look it up.
You can look it up. So I started digging and I started looking. I also knew that I had a brother that was 2 years older than me. That was in my paperwork. So I am looking for anybody. And finally, I stumble across a picture, a Facebook page of a guy who has the right last name, the right age. And we so happen to have one person in common on Facebook who happened to be a cousin of mine on my adopted side. I reach out to this cousin. I'm like, hey, do you know this guy? And so I tell him what's going on. And I'm like, can you ask him what his mother's name is? And he did. And lo and behold, I had found the right person. And I reached out to him on Facebook. I sent him a direct message. And then that was the longest 24 hours later because it took him 24 hours to respond. Mm-hmm. And he did respond. And he was excited, but he knew absolutely nothing about me.
Really? And so he had not gone into the foster care.
No.
So why had you?
Why? So what I learned is that my mother, like I said, she was 15. And my grandmother was pregnant at the same time with my aunt, who is 6 months older than me, and who is the baby of their family, the baby of 6 children. And so I've come up with this on my own, but I can only imagine they were I know they were in the hood on the west side of Chicago. I've already got all these kids, and now here you are pregnant with your second child
At 15.
At 15. Somebody's got to go.
I cannot raise you, and these are more kids. And
Yes.
so you went to foster care.
I went to foster care. What I also learned later, too, is she actually didn't raise my older brother either. At some point, she herself disappeared. She did come back eventually, but and I had to learn how to show her grace, but that didn't happen right out the gate. We'll get into that.
Yeah, let's get into that. Let's do get into that.
But yeah, she didn't raise him either. And when I found them, I found out that I also have a brother that's 11 years younger than me. Then she didn't raise him either. So even though I was given up for adoption, but she technically abandoned all of us.
And so where did your 2 brothers end up?
With my grandmother. Yeah, she ended up raising them.
Right. And so grandma raises now her 6 kids and then 2 grandkids.
And 2 grandkids.
And
yes.
so you end up in an adoptive home. That was a good home.
Right. The other side of the tracks, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're over here dealing with poverty and everything that comes along with it. I'm over here in rainbows and unicorns and ponyland, having a good life.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's pros and cons because you got to figure all this stuff out, and you were trying to figure it out. So now you're 36 and you find all this out. So tell me about this discussion with your brother.
So he tells me that he was very glad to meet me and that I found them. But he was like, I'm so glad that you weren't around. And he said that because, you know, in the streets of Chicago, gang culture, drug, all that, and they were in the hood. So he was like, I would have to watch your back and my back. I can't even imagine what that would have been like. He was like, I'm glad, be grateful that you were not around.
How's he doing now?
Amazing.
Is he?
With the stats say he should have been, he's none of it.
Right. So he watched his back well enough and he was able to kind of get out.
Right. And he had people that took him in as his, that he calls his godparents. And had it not been for them, he would not have landed on his feet the way that he did. But he is amazing. His wife is amazing. They're still in Illinois, but they're in the suburbs of Chicago.
And doing okay.
Amazing. And doing amazing.
And what about the brother 10 years younger?
Yeah, him not so much.
I see. Not so much.
Yeah. And that's all I'll say about that.
Okay. He's not landed on his feet yet.
He has not landed on his feet as well. Yes.
That's hard. That's hard. And so I'll hit at the core issue that gets hit at all the time. Are you glad you were adopted?
I am. And I know people are going to come for me when I say that, but I am, because I know what it would have been for me. But even before I knew, I kind of had an inkling, only because I knew she was 15 and because I knew the area. And for me, I don't know why, but it was like, it was probably not that great. And I was right.
Yeah. So that's an interesting statement. They're going to come for me, because there is sort of this feeling out there that if you're glad you're adopted, something's wrong with you. You should be very unhappy.
Yeah, I don't. I don't live by that, because what I live by is everybody has a different story. And I do understand that everybody's story is not good, but that does not erase those of us that had a good experience. You don't get to take us out of the conversation.
And that's so interesting, because I've talked with a lot of people that were adopted, and I've wondered, is nobody out there happy? Now, I'm the adoptive mom of 3 children, and when I talk to them, now they say, yeah, they're glad they're adopted. But of course, I'm their mom, so they have to say that. But I've thought, are only the unhappy people speaking up?
No, we're out here.
Yeah. And there's the happy people, they're also speaking up.
I think maybe the unhappy people, maybe their voices are louder, because let's be real, people like those types of stories.
Like the drama.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's challenging, because it leaves people who do adopt going, am I doing something wrong? And so that's a challenge. So, but nevertheless, you've had a good adoption experience. You are glad where you're at. But you still had this desire to get to know the biological family. So tell us, after you met your brother, did you ever meet your mom?
A year later, because she was not she was no longer in Illinois. She was actually in Alabama. She and I had talked on the phone before I met her, but a year later, my husband and I did go to Alabama. And leading up to it, of course, nervous, excited, and everything, because in my head, oh my gosh, I'm getting ready to lay my eyes on the person that carried me.
Mm-hmm. And whose genetics is yours.
Whose genetics are mine. Now, I'll say this. When I met my brothers, I met them, I met my grandmother, I met aunts, cousins, and for the first time, I'm in a room with people that, I'll say the word favor me, because when I do meet the other side, I found the people that look like me. But I'm in a room full of people, I can see the resemblance. And growing up in a family where it's very tight-knit, we did family reunions all the time, still do family reunions, and just being used to being in a room full of people that I don't look like, but it's my norm. So this is just what it is. So that was quite the experience. But when I went to go see my birth mom, I'm looking for that genetic mirror. And I had seen pictures, of course. And when I first laid eyes on her, my first thought was, my God, life has been hard.
Oh.
Because you could see it. Mind you, she wasn't that much older
than me. I know,
she's
only 15 years older than you. Oh.
And I was disappointed, because everything that I had made up in my head, she was none of that. I thought maybe we'd be able to connect on a level, because, I'm educated. I went to college. I did all these things and had all these lived experiences. She and I went to Starbucks, and it was her first time in a Starbucks. And I was like, okay.
You don't have a lot of similar lived experiences.
Mm-mm.
Was that hard?
It was jarring, because even with me seeing her and going, okay, life has been hard. But then when I started to talk to her, and I was like, oh, we don't have anything in common. And I am guilty of being rainbows, unicorns, and ponies. I could probably sell tickets to stuff that I make up in my head. And it wasn't any of that. And I didn't know this then. I know better now. I wish somebody had told me. But I went in with all these questions, and okay, what about my birth father? Because the only information on my birth certificate about him was age 17. That was it. There was no name. who is he? Like, what happened? And what I later came to realize is, girl, these people, you just showed up. You need to give them a minute. I didn't do that. So I always tell people now, give them a minute, let them process.
Mm-hmm. I mean, think of it from her point of view. I mean, she's had these hard life experiences and now she sees you. And you're beautiful. You're beautiful. You're everything she wants from you. But there's some mixed feelings there.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't, I didn't think about any of that. I went in with blinders on. I'm like, oh, I have all these questions. And I was like so annoyed because she wasn't answering any of my questions.
For example, what were your questions?
I want to know what happened. How did you grow up? How did you end up pregnant? Like twice by 15. Did something happen?
Yeah, who's the daddy here?
Listen, I had all that. I came in hot. And that was so not fair. But it took me some years to mature to that because I was very frustrated. She didn't remember my birthday. And I was like, what do you mean you don't remember my birthday? But as time went on, I was like, girl, that was traumatizing. And her brain had tucked that way deep down somewhere. Because I was never supposed to come back anyway.
Right. And now here you are with all of the memories and some of them not so great.
Right. I was very selfish when I showed up.
And you're 36. Can you imagine what it would have been like when you were 19?
Bingo! Everything happens when it's supposed to happen. You are spot on. And so I got most of my information from an older cousin, and what I learned was if you were not her age, meaning my birth mother's age, or older, you did not know I existed.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because that happened. They swept that under the rug. We're going to keep it pushing. And so my brother was only too little to remember. And then everybody else. So those cousins that I met,
they didn't know.
Clue.
They didn't know who you were.
No clue that even existed. I also learned, because remember I said I went to live in Florida. My parents adopted me. A year later, we relocated and have been here ever since. They were like, so what part of Chicago did you grow up in? I was like,
I don't know.
I wasn't here.
I was in Florida.
I grew up in Florida. And they said, so you didn't grow up in Chicago? I was like, no. My grandmother had told the family that there was a beautician in the city that had me, and she knew exactly where I was.
Oh, and that wasn't true at all. Why did she really think that, or was that just a story?
I think that she had to tell herself that to be okay with it, because she knew that it was a closed adoption because she's the one that arranged the adoption. Remember, my mother was a kid. So she was the one that did everything. So she had to know it was a closed adoption.
You know, there are some people that would say, well, your mom didn't have a chance and this was all wrong and this was coercion and all of this and that. What do you think about that?
So what I say to that is, at what point do you decide that is it better to stay in it? And as my brother says, he was hungry all the time for the sake of being there. And who knows what I would have ended up doing, because I'm a female. So there's other things you got to worry about in those situations. Or do you consider the life of the child?
Exactly. And so you look at that grandma, and she's going to this 15-year-old daughter and saying, honey, we can't do another kid here. Let's give her another option. And
Right.
and
They didn't have the resources. So I hear what you're saying. Some people are like, well, if they had given them the resources, okay. But what about the mindset? What about the mental capacity? You could have given them all the money in the world, but was the mental capacity there to handle that? That's something people have to think about.
it's a funny argument, and I hear it all the time, and I go, yeah, there's other ways to look at it.
And I'm an adoptee, so.
and you're going, this is good.
Yeah.
So you met your moms, you met your mom and your mom's family, and now tell us about how the dad came in.
So my birth mom had given me a name of who my birth father was. And she also told me that me and my older brother had the same father. So fast forward to 2023, I finally take a DNA test. And I think what took me so long is I just didn't have the mental capacity because I was frustrated with my birth mom. She wasn't talking a lot. Our relationship was very surface. I didn't have, or still do, have a good relationship with my brothers, but I don't know if I was looking for a relationship with my birth mom or if I just wanted answers. I don't know the answer to that question. But whatever it is, she wasn't giving it to me. And so, but again, I had to mature. I had to grow up some, start looking at things in other ways. My adoptive parents were very supportive. And even my mom was like, you got to give people a moment.
Yeah. And I love that. And I was going to ask you about how your adoptive parents were doing with this.
Very supportive.
Mm-hmm. And including giving you a little bit of feedback. Now, slow down, that they can't give you that's really nice.
Yeah. When I would go, I asked her, she's doing this. And my mom would be like, okay, I hear you, but
did your adoptive and biological parents ever meet directly?
No. So, but I mentioned all that about what she had told us about my birth father for a reason. So in 2023, I took a DNA test, and that is how I discovered that side of the family and found out that everything she had told me was wrong. The name was wrong. The age was real wrong.
But how old was he? Not 17?
Not 17.
Okay. I'm guessing older.
So he and his birthday was March 24th. My birthday is March 25th. The day before I was born, he turned 22. So
that's statutory rape, but we won't mention that.
It is. And I have a lot of thoughts about how that could have gone. And only because of the stories I've been told about how their life was and the things they was out there in those streets doing. And so I don't know what that was. And I have had to land in a place to be okay that I'll never have those answers. All I know is some kind of way y'all cross paths because here I am. I'm the evidence. So, yeah. And when I met them, that's when I found my real genetic mirror.
So you contacted him and said, hey, I want to meet you?
I went back to Chicago because he was also still in Chicago. And I have I have 4 sisters, but one had already passed away. She from asthma attack. And so I have 3 sisters and 1 brother on that side.
Older, younger?
I am the oldest. I was his first child. I was the family rumor on that side.
Family rumor.
Because they had heard that this young lady had this baby girl, but nobody ever saw the baby. Because I was adopted.
And so were they glad to meet you?
They were very glad to meet me. I have a very good relationship with them as well. However, when I met my birth father, he was very ill. He had suffered a stroke right after my sister had passed away because it was a lot. And so he was bedridden. He was in the nursing home. And it's almost, and 4 months later, he did pass away.
Boy, you just got in under the wire, didn't you?
I'm telling you, it's almost like God allowed him to just be there just long enough for me to show up.
And why was that important to you?
When I was a little girl, I said, dear God, please let my mommy and daddy be alive when I meet them. I said that as a little girl. He never promised me how long they would be alive once I got there, but he granted me that. And I saw my genetic mirror. This hair on my head looked just like him. My sisters, it's my face. We look so much alike. You know, when you see somebody, you can see yourself. And I was able to see him 3 times. No, 2 times. One was on the last time, which I didn't know was about to be the last time, was on FaceTime. And it so happened to be like 2 weeks before he passed away.
Wow. And you've got a good relationship with his other daughters, your sister.
Yes.
And why is that important to you?
It's important because it's that connection. You know what? It's like, even though I'm so grateful to be where I was, and in my mind, I was where I was meant to be, I am so grateful to have been able to foster these relationships later in life, because it's something about having that connection with these people that I am biologically related to. I don't know how to quite put that into words, but it means something. It's something about watching people and seeing my mannerisms in other people. I hear all the time that I sound just like we all sound alike when we talk. I hear that all the time. It's just something about having that connection. And the way not to say that my brothers on my mother's side didn't embrace me, but the way they embraced me was a little different. I think number 1, because they're females. And number 2, they do family differently than the other side of the family does family.
A little closer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They grew up more like I grew up, in that tight-knit family. The other family, they're not close.
Wow. How about your biological grandmother on your mom's side? How's she doing?
So she passed away in 2018, December 2018. I got a chance to see her about 4 times. When I first met her, she was very apologetic. And I did tell her no need to apologize. I've never been angry, and I had a good life.
That idea of anger, and I want us to come back to it a little bit about what makes people angry and why people choose not to be angry. But she was worried that you might be.
It wasn't like a real relationship, if that makes sense. It wasn't like a grandmother-granddaughter relationship. It was like, I understand you're my grandmother. And, you know, they lived in Chicago. I live here in Orlando. So when I would go and see her when I was in the city. But yeah, and definitely went to her funeral when she passed away.
So how about your little sister, your adopted little sister? Has she shown an interest in finding her family?
She found her family the year after I found my family.
So she kind of followed your lead.
And her people were actually here in Florida, in North Florida.
Uh-huh. And has it been good for her?
Mm-hmm. She has a relationship with her mom. Not so much with her siblings, but she does definitely with her mom. Her father had already passed away.
Right. So all of this coming around, your adoptive parents are watching this and they're being supportive and they're helping whenever they can. Did you ever feel a tug of war from them?
Mm-mm. Because, and it might be because of my relationship with my parents, but they know I'm not trying to replace them. And I did say it when I first found them, just to make sure they understood that.
And I would imagine they go, we know.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, we're irreplaceable.
Right.
So-
Right. And I totally agree with that statement. But my mom said that she knew it was important for both of her girls to find their people one day. Now, she did not necessarily agree with me when I was 19, but I understand now. She was like, I don't think that's a good idea. I took it as, you don't want me to find my family, but it wasn't that at all. It was like, girl, you are 19. You are not ready.
And girl, you think you know everything.
You think you know everything. You are not ready. So I am glad it happened the way that it did. And I understand now. At 50, I understand now.
We got to grow up, don't we?
Had to grow up. At 19, she don't want me to find my people. Wasn't it at all? You're not ready to find your people. And whatever comes along with finding your people.
And that's the thing. It's whatever comes along with it. And sometimes that whole experience of looking at your biological mom and she is not what you anticipated. That's, as you put it, jarring. And you know, that's life. Life is jarring sometimes. But sometimes you got to have a little bit of foundation of life to be able to tolerate that jarring.
Yeah. Yeah. So I will say this as well. My birth mother, she actually just passed away in September. That hard life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened?
I did not attend her service. And it was a decision that I made based on the thing that I was most frustrated with that side of the family. It was the thing that I never had with them is the closeness. I used to take that personal, and then I had to realize, oh, this is just how y'all move. This doesn't have anything to do with you.
And they don't even have it in them to be close. It's just not there.
It's just not there. That's how they've been moving generation after generation. And so what they do, they bond in trauma is how I've coined it.
Oh, interesting.
And so, like I said, I was there. They had 2 deaths in 2018 at the top of the year. My aunt, one of my birth mother's sister, she just didn't wake up one morning. So I went to that funeral. The end of 2018, I went to my grandmother's funeral. I'm so glad when my aunt passed away, we were all at my brother's house and we took a big family photo. I'm so glad someone had the wherewithal to do that because it's probably the last time the family is going to be together like that. And so years have passed since that happened. And I'm just getting frustrated with them because I'm like, I don't want to just bond with y'all when something happens. Because that's not how I move. That's not how I was raised. I understand that's how you guys move. But so when she passed away, I was at peace with that. And we kind of knew it was coming. It wasn't like sudden. She had been sick. I had peace with that. What I did not want to do is be in the midst of just what comes along with when the person dies, especially it being your mother. I don't even talk to y'all like that. So I'm good.
I want to follow up on that statement, bond in trauma. So I want to ask, why do you think that is a way that people bond? And what would you think is a better way to bond?
I can only speak for them because what I've witnessed, they just come around each other, it seems like when the bad stuff happens. And like I have told my older brother, I don't need to talk to you every single day. But we live in the age where we walk around with our phones in our hands. It's 2 seconds. Hey, how you doing? I'm fine. How are you? Quick. Hey, I'm just checking in. I am genuinely like that. I do that kind of stuff. I don't even hear from you and others in the family. And so when she passed away, I was going to go. And then I was like, I had to come with the realization, the only reason why you're going is because society says you should be there. I didn't want to do it.
So you didn't go.
I didn't go.
You didn't go.
They acknowledged me. My brother was hoping I would change my mind. I was acknowledged in the obituary. He asked me for a couple of if I had any pictures with her, and I did, and I sent those. So, I was acknowledged. I just wasn't there.
So let's go back to this question of your grandma asked you about thinking you were going to be angry, and you were not, angry. That's a curious thing. Why do you think she thought you were going to be angry?
I've never thought about that. I don't know. But you are correct. A lot of adoptees are angry, but I don't know. I've never asked myself that question. I don't know.
And if we go to why a lot of adoptive feel like they're angry, is because they feel abandoned. They feel like they have been cast aside and they don't matter anymore. And so that makes them angry. And when we think of anger, it is an emotion that accompanies loss and sadness and disappointment, and that leads to this anger. But you hadn't felt many of those emotions. You had felt loss. Did you feel loss? I mean, you felt loss when your biological father died. Did you or not?
That's a different kind of grief. And here's why. Remember I told you with my birth mother, she and I just had very surface conversation. It was when especially as she started going in and out of the hospital, it was literally, I would only hear from her when she was going to the hospital.
Again, or trauma bonding sort of thing.
Or, yes, or, because I live in Florida, oh, I see a hurricane's coming that way. Are you guys okay? That's when I would hear from her. Other than that.
And it's sometimes you just don't know what else to talk about. You just go, okay, well.
Right. I probably had scared her off. She was like, that girl got too many questions. I'm not. But by then I was done asking my questions. But on the flip side, remember I told you I'd only seen my birth father twice in person and once on FaceTime. We had, and even in his state of mind, meaning that he had the stroke and his speech was a little like he had to process, his speech was a little slurred. We had more conversation and more laughs in those 3 occasions than she and I ever had.
Interesting.
Isn't it?
It kind of makes you sad, doesn't it?
It did.
It makes you hurt for her that she doesn't know how to connect. It makes you sad. So she had these 2 boys and she had you, and you were raised by a great family, and the 2 boys really kind of struggled. Now the one did okay, but the other one's really struggling. And now she's going to look at her life and go, oh.
When my grandmother passed away and we all stayed at my brother's house, that was the first time she had, and this was in 2018, that was the first time that she had ever had 3 of us under the same roof.
Oh, see, that's really kind of sweet. Was that sweet for her?
She didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that.
You could tell she did not know what to do with it. And of course, in the beginning of the evening, all the family was there. And then as people trickled down, and then at the end, it was just us. Me and my brothers, even though we don't talk all the time, but when we do get together, we laugh and joke like siblings do. And we were doing that, and you could tell she just didn't quite know how to.
It's hard. You kind of want to just hug her and say, it's okay. It's okay. We're going to be all right.
It's okay. You are absolutely correct. But I had to learn. Remember I said in the very, very beginning, I had to learn how to start showing that kind of grace.
See, I love that. Ooh, we should name this episode How to Show Grace. But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Here's a philosophy that I'm developing in my head as they're talking to people, and I want to see if you agree with it. Everyone goes through crap. Everyone has trauma. Everybody has dramatic things. And we always have a way of looking at it. We can either look at it, oh, this never should happen to me, and feel like a victim, and also be angry at the people out there for causing this to happen to me. Or we can look at it as having a purpose. Okay, this has happened to me, but there's a purpose to this, and I can become better for this, or they can become purpose. I can tell by your expression you agree with my last way. Tell us about that.
I agree with it because, and to loop back around to your question about being angry, I wholeheartedly believe I was not angry because I had work to do when I became an adult. I had this work to do. I could not do what I do had I been angry.
No, you cannot. Some people are trying, but they don't attract people. They repel people with their anger.
Yeah.
As much as we want to feel sympathy for people that are considering themselves victim, and we can feel sympathy for them, and we can even be kind to them, but we don't want to hang around them.
We do not. We do not.
And look at your group that went to the zoo. They wanted to hang around you.
They want to hang out and be at the zoo and look at the little sad animals. Don't go to the Atlanta Zoo, but I'm getting off topic. Stay focused.
It's a sad zoo.
It's a
But they
sad
wanted
zoo.
they were attracted and drawn by your love, your grace, your kindness. And you're seeing purpose in your life.
I am seeing it. I am seeing it. And I wasn't always here. And I wasn't always like I said, I knew I was adopted. Great. I was just living my life until this fell in my lap. Because this was never, the podcast that I do was never supposed to be. I just decided I wanted to tell my story. At the time, I had found my birth mother and my brothers. I hadn't even found the other side yet. I was going to tell a story. 3 quick little episodes. Done.
And yet still you're here. Because the need is there. The purpose is there. Okay, so let's ask that question. These 30 people, 25 and then 30 people that came to you and they want to hang out with you and they want to go on and hang out again. What is it that's pulling them, that's drawing them?
I think it's the space. It's the community. It's when we get together, you can just be. They laugh, they joke, they cry, they tell their story. If they want to, they just find this commonality. It's almost, this is a perfect way. I heard someone describe it like this. It was like, and she was the first timer. She didn't go to Atlanta. It was like going to a family reunion and you had not met anybody, but you knew when you got there, they were all your first cousins. And when you got there, it was love and you just felt it. You knew you were home when you got there. That's how she described it.
And all of us long for that, don't we? It from the moment we're aware of anything, we long for that feeling of connection and home, what we think of as home. So you have felt that your whole life. And your grandma was worried that you hadn't. And then when you said, no, grandma, I have it. I have it. I wonder if grandma does or did.
I hope so.
I hope so too. I wonder if your birth mom did.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that she had decided wherever she was in that space, that's where she was okay. That was safe.
It was good enough.
It was good enough is a great way to put that. Yeah.
And there are probably many women out there who struggle with the decision of, do I place a child for adoption? And the question that they want to ask, they want the answer to, is what I'm doing a good thing? And then the second question is, will my child know that I did it for them and not hate me for it, not be angry at me for it? And so if you were to be able to honestly talk to your birth mom, what would you say to her?
Oof. I was able to tell her that I was not angry. I was able to, she also apologized. So I was able to say the same thing to her, like I said to my grandmother. And I would also, but this would have to be the mature Tarcia, not the
Wouldn't have been the
not the
19-year-old.
30, right. But it's okay. It's okay. And whatever your story is, or whatever your story is or was, it's okay. I did want to tell her that nobody's judging you. Maybe she felt like I was going to judge her because the picture she painted of herself versus the things that I heard, it didn't quite match up. So, but nobody's judging you. You were 15. And now that I know how old my birth father was, who knows what that was? Oh, I don't know. So yeah, it's okay would be the thing that I would really want to tell her. It's okay.
And I love, because every birth mom really wants to know that their child's going to turn out okay.
Sure.
And so it's a mixed feelings, because on the one hand, they turned out good because I wasn't involved. I mean, and that is a hard feeling of
Oh, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah. Because I chose not to be involved. Now they turned out really well. It's kind of a lose-lose situation both directions for many that make this decision.
I will say this for the people that say they should have just had resources and the child should stay put. And I'm going to say this because my aunt that's 6 months older than me, she also does very well, has done very well. Even though life would have been hard and life was hard for them, I guess what would have probably happened, I would have had to make a decision at some point. Do I go right or do I go left? And I think that's the difference between my brother and my aunt and my younger brother. They made a decision to go one way. But life was still hard.
So now let's talk about adoptive parents, because from what you've kind of portrayed, your adoptive parents were they're aware of your situation. They're aware of your interests. They, as you said, spoon fed you along the way and tried to help you in your identity development, and gave you, some pushback when pushback was necessary. So now give advice to other adoptive parents.
Oh, first of all, please do not wait to tell your child that they are adopted. That is a train wreck waiting to happen. Don't hide it. Don't be secretive. Just tell them. The younger, the better. And age appropriate. And in the day and age of the internet, you have all kinds of tools at your fingertips on how do I tell my 5-year-old or my 6-year-old that they're adopted. Have those conversations with them.
Lots of cute books out there.
Lots of cute books. Mm-hmm. Tons. And as they grow, also understand, for especially those who might have adopted kids or children, understand that they're going to be teenagers at some point. They're going to be young adults at some point. And you've adopted all those versions of them.
Mm. Sometimes we forget that. Sometimes I even said this to one guy when he was holding this cute little baby, and he goes, "I didn't even sleep at all last night." I go, "Well, welcome to your new life." And I said, sometimes I think we hand a person a child and this cute little baby, and I just want to say, I'm sorry, because
they don't take literally. Sometimes they get real ugly.
The challenges are coming. So, but strap it on and take it on.
And take it on, yeah. And the more the relationships, and if you can be open and communication, that's the word I'm looking for. Communication is key. And have those what could be hard conversations. When they get older, they might have questions. Understand they might do things a a little bit differently because they do not have your DNA. It's that nature over nurture thing.
And they're not a tabula rasa. They are not a blank slate.
They are not. Now, I will say, and I hear it all the time, I act just like my mama, and I know I do. She raised me. I act just like that
would love
woman.
to meet your mama.
But there are some things that she and I do real differently. That's that DNA kicking in. Yeah, and so get that. So, when they're doing stuff, because I can attest to that being a teenager, because one time me and my mom were like oil and water. Like most teenage daughters and mothers.
Sure.
Get.
Sure.
And she would be like, this girl is doing all this. I never.
That's fun.
DNA.
All right. So now, how would you talk and you do it all the time, talking with other adoptees. And some of them are angry. Some of them are hurt. Some of them are very confused. Some of them are still trying to figure stuff out. What do you say?
First and foremost, show yourself some grace. That's first. You got to start there. You got to start inward and then work your way out. And I think that's one of the biggest things with some adoptees, because they got so much going on here, but they are blah, 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 just whatever target they could hit because they're so angry. Let's deal with self first, and then whatever else you need to do for those that may be angry and need to heal, and also need to have those hard conversations if you're able to, because I understand these situations can get real so, but please show yourself some grace.
Mm-hmm. I love that. There was something that we had in your thing, and I'm going to butcher it if I don't find it, but it was the idea of some of your behavior is related. It's not your personality. It's some of your emotions. I'm not even going to find it really well here. But so often, these misbehaviors that people show are these outward signs of something that's going on inwardly that most of the time they can't even identify. How did you work with that as you were feeling it?
Well, first and foremost, I had to be honest with myself that I actually had some trauma. Because in my rainbows, unicorn, and pony world, I didn't have any trauma. What are you talking about? But then when I started to learn what some of those things are, it's like, oh. And then I learned trauma can be real big and real loud, or maybe not so much. I think that's something else that gets people think trauma, and they just think.
I heard it say the capital T trauma, and that's huge. And they were raped, and there was a murder, and most of us experience more lower level.
Little T. And I think I have little T trauma. No, I know I have little T trauma.
Mm-hmm. And it's still trauma. And so when we say it's trauma, we mean there is an impression, both biologically, neurologically, that leaves an impact on us, that unless we go through and look at it honestly, it will have an impact that sometimes we're not acknowledging.
Sure. Absolutely.
But if we'll look at it, we'll recognize it, and sometimes need to get therapy, EMDR, somatic training, other things to actually look at it really carefully. We can heal it. We can change it. And sometimes just sharing our story can change it.
Very therapeutic. That's why I always encourage people to go tell your story or write it down or get it out, because it's very therapeutic.
Mm-hmm. And so when we think about the 30 people, 25 people looking at the sad animals in the Atlanta Zoo, they're telling their story. That is a healing process.
Yeah. Being in community is a healing process. Yeah.
Well, this has been a joy visiting with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, I loved having you. for any of you out there that are listening and you're struggling with as an adoptee and you're struggling, please feel free to reach out. If you're an adoptive family and you're struggling and how do I help my adoptee, please feel free to reach out. And if you're a birth mom, and our love goes out to birth moms because we understand this horribly difficult decision that you have to make and the fear that you have that someday your child will be angry, will not turn out like you hope. Please feel free to reach out to us. Otherwise, we are thankful to have you here, and we'll talk later.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Voices of Adoption. I'm Donna Pope.
And I'm Nathan William. Every voice in the adoption triad deserves to be heard and understood.
Visit voicesofadoption.org to subscribe and access additional resources. And then join us next time as we continue to build bridges through conversation.